Hi guys, and welcome to my WCW nWo Superbrawl VIII 1998 pay-per-view review. Now Superbrawl came to us all the way from San Francisco at the Cow Palace, February 22nd, 1998. And it was the big one, the big rematch between Sting and Hollywood Hogan for that vacated WCW World Heavyweight Title. And every title was on the line at Superbrawl, including the TV title that was on the line twice even. And also we had Juventud Guerrera, the Youth Warrior. He put his mask up against Chris Jericho's Cruiserweight title in a great match up there as well. We also had a double crossing, a backstabbing from brother to brother that nobody saw coming. So a ton of great action. Let's go check it out. So the first match of the night was for the WCW television title, currently held by Rick Martel. He was taking on challenger Booker T. And so whoever won this match would have to defend that TV title on the same night against Saturn. Booker T lost the TV title to Rick Martel only days earlier due to interference by Saturn. Now the two were in the ring again with Saturn, waiting in the wings for his chance at the belt later in the show. The match began aggressively and stayed vicious from start to finish. Martel dished out punishment to the challenger with a back body drop and a slam into the guardrail. But Booker T was quick to rally and came back strong even after a Martel power slam and a powerful rear chinlock. The Quebec Crab almost did Booker T in, but he wisely made his way to the ropes to break the hold. After several 2 counts by both men, a hard-running forearm by Booker T and a scissors kick to Martel set the champ up for the Harlem sidekick, and the title changed hands. Booker T became the 2-time TV champion. But after the match, Saturn quickly jumped into the ring and slapped the rings of Saturn on the unsuspecting new TV champ. And despite the promise of a match later in the show, the TV title bout was on and Booker T was in for the fight of his life. Saturn, hungry for the title and ready to roll, went after an exhausted Booker T like a pit bull, intent on taking the belt from the new champ. Booker T managed a hard slam to Saturn onto the safety rail on the outside, but could only crawl away, spent from his previous match. A Saturn slingshot crossbody over the ropes flattened both men on the outside. Back inside, Booker T delivered a missile dropkick to Saturn, which could have been the winning move for the champ, but he was unable to secure the 3 count. Despite the obvious exhaustion of Booker T, Saturn's attempts to get the 1, 2, 3 were thwarted time and time again. At last, the Harlem sidekick, which won the belt for Booker T only moments before in his match with Martel, once again proved to be a winning move as Booker secured yet another win, and a very deserving one at that. The winner of this match, Booker T, to retain the TV title. He beats Martel, he beats Saturn. One hell of a night for Booker T. Okay, so next up we had Parka taking on the Disco Inferno, and it was Parka who went after Disco with that steel chair that he is so famous for using before the bell even rings. Parka strutted his stuff, then executed a corkscrew plancher off of the top rope to a disoriented Disco Inferno. Gouging the eyes of Disco, Parka got down and dirty, and a hard kick to Disco's head flattened him. Rallying, Disco cornered Parka and delivered a ton of kicks to Parka in the corner, then executed an atomic drop on the luchador. An accidental thumb to the eye to the referee by Disco left Parka with a smile on his face as he grabbed his beloved chair and slammed Disco's head, then sat his stunned opponent in the chair. Going up top to finish off his victim, Parka was unpleasantly surprised when Disco countered the move and threw Parka face first into the chair, secured the chart buster on him, and pinned the chairman of WCW for the win. The winner here, the Disco Inferno by pinfall. Okay, so next up we had Bill Goldberg taking on Brad Armstrong. Undefeated, Goldberg went after Armstrong immediately and slapped on an ankle lock submission hold early in the match. However, Goldberg's hold was broken and an Armstrong Russian leg sweep served only to rile up the explosive wrestler. After an amazing backbreaker into a slam maneuver, Goldberg, a man who wastes no time, went for the jackhammer on the helpless Armstrong and secured the win in just over 2 minutes, leaving Goldberg's record unblemished. The winner here, guys, Bill Goldberg by pinfall. Okay, so next up it was Juventud Guerrera versus Chris Jericho. It was Juventud, the youth warrior, the young warrior. He was putting up his mask versus Chris Jericho's cruiserweight title. Juvi's mask and his identity were on the line as he fought to regain the cruiserweight belt he had held only 1 month previously. But Jericho was so intent on holding onto his title that he refused to even take the belt from around his waist to wrestle. Reality hit home as Juvi connected with a breathtaking kick to Jericho's gut, leaving a gasping Jericho to reluctantly hand over his belt to the ref and continue the match. Jericho was flattened by Juvi on the outside and played possum, hoping for a count-out and an easy win, but Guerrera wisely delivered an elbow drop at the count of 9 to restart the match. "I can do it too, I can fly too," Jericho yelled when the crowd was awed by one of Guerrera's amazing high-flying moves. Counter after counter, Juventud refused to allow Jericho to get the upper hand, frustrating the champ. Guerrera managed a Juvi 450 splash and was declared the winner, but Jericho had grabbed the ropes just as the 3 count was being made. Due to this, the match was back on, and before Guerrera even knew what was happening, Jericho attacked him and managed to slap the lion tamer on Guerrera, who reluctantly submitted. Now after the match, guys, while being taunted by Jericho, Juventud Guerrera, true to his word, slowly unlaced his mask, remarking, "I love you," to his wrestler father, and as the mask was unlaced, an impatient Jericho ripped it from the luchador and exposed the man behind the mask. Humiliated but proud, Juventud then faced the fans, showing the world that mask or no mask, he will be a force to be reckoned with. So the winner here, guys, Chris Jericho by submission. He retains his cruiserweight title. And unfortunately for Juventud Guerrera, he loses his mask. But as we all know, he did go on to bigger and better things from losing the mask. And that was the results in that one. Pretty damn good matchup too. Alrighty, so now we had Steve Mongo McMichael versus the British Bulldog. And since coming to WCW, the Bulldog has had it in for McMichael and vice versa, even escalating to a backstage fight a couple weeks before this match took place. The match was every bit a brawl, starting out with a McMichael scoop slam and a variation of the sharpshooter by the Bulldog early in the match. Screaming in pain, Mongo managed to reach the ropes and break the hold. He then threw the Bulldog outside and delivered several stiff forearms and threw him into the guardrail and the steel ring steps. McMichael set the Bulldog up for a punch outside the ring, but missed and slammed his hand into the steel ring post. The Bulldog, taking advantage of the obvious injury to McMichael's hand, went after the weak spot, inflicting even more damage to his foe. Meanwhile, Mongo tried to set the Bulldog up for a pile driver, but his wrist gave out on him, and he landed on the hurting end of a Bulldog armbar submission. Screaming in pain, the ex-Bear refused to submit, but the wise referee, sensing permanent injury if the match continued, called it a Bulldog win. McMichael was infuriated. He claims he did not give up at all, and he screamed, "I didn't quit," to the referee and the crowd as he stormed off in frustration. But the winner here, guys, a British Bulldog by submission. Okay, next up we had one of the matches of the night. It was a special return match for the US Heavyweight title held by Diamond Dallas Page. He was taking on challenger Chris Benoit. Mutual respect was the reason this match was signed. Both men are known for their amazing work ethic and talent. And after shaking hands, they showed us all that a wrestling match does not have to be between bitter enemies to be intense. Benoit, as focused as ever, delivered a stiff kick to DDP's midsection, then managed a front suplex into the ring ropes, causing Page to turn it up yet another notch. Attempting a diamond cutter on Benoit, the champ was halted in his attempt and found himself the victim of several Benoit chops. The heat was turned up again when both men exchanged slaps to the face and the crippler managed a variation of the crippler crossface to DDP. Benoit was unrelentless as DDP kicked and struggled his way free of the oftentimes match-ending hold. DDP, however, did get out of the hold with a well-placed jawbreaker. Benoit delivered a flurry of kicks and chops to Page, who then ended up in a Benoit sleeper hold. Ever the thinking champ, DDP dumped Benoit to the outside, breaking the hold. In the ring, DDP went up top for a suplex that left both men flat on the mat. After the diamond cutter was blocked once again by a crafty Benoit, the crossface was once again attempted on DDP, but the champ threw a leg onto the ropes to break the hold. An amazing array of German suplexes by Benoit landed him a 2 3/4 count, but at last DDP went for the diamond cutter and slammed his worthy opponent to the mat. Page left through the crowd, the US Heavyweight title held high. This was one hell of a match, one of the matches of the night here at Superbrawl VIII, and it was DDP retaining his US title. So next up, a real grudge match. It was foe vs foe. It was the Macho Man, Randy Savage. He came out with Miss Elizabeth, and they were taking on Lex Luger. This was anything goes, no DQ match. And Luger came out taped from the chest down from a recent nWo beating, walked into the match at a defiant disadvantage. Savage, eyeing Luger's taped ribs, went straight for him and shoulder-rammed Luger into the corner. Then the two went outside the ring, brawling into the crowd. Luger took an amazing chair shot to his injured ribs by Savage in the crowd and withstood a heap of punches to his ribcage. Just when it looked like there was no more fight left in the total package, he managed to power slam and then rack Savage to the delight of the crowd. Liz, sensing an imminent loss for Savage, then ran into the ring and raked Luger's eyes, causing him to drop Savage. Into the nWo, who ran to the aid of Savage, but in an amazing twist of events, both Luger and Savage fought off the Renegade group, sending them out of the ring. Hollywood Hulk Hogan then stepped in and stopped his disciples from helping Savage, allowing Luger to set up the Macho Man for the rack and the win by submission. And after the match, a vindictive Hogan remarked, "We're glad you got beat," to Savage. So this really was just the next chapter in Randy Savage removing himself from the black and white nWo. They did not come to his aid at all in this match, which would of course set up the match between Savage and Hogan the following month at Uncensored. But the winner in this one, guys, Lex Luger by submission. Alrighty guys, so next up was the big shocker of the night. It was a match for the tag team titles. It was between the challengers, the Outsiders with Dusty Rhodes. They took on the tag team champions, the Steiner brothers with Ted DiBiase. You want wrestling history? This match will go down in the record books as the day the legendary Steiner brother tag team came apart at the seams. The match started with Hall and Rick Steiner facing off, and a furious Rick Steiner punching and belly-to-belly suplexing the outsider after his now famous toothpick toss in the face. After nearly 2.5 minutes of grappling, the unthinkable happened. Scott Steiner flashed a quick look at the outsiders and in one endless moment turned against his partner and brother, Rick, punching him and butterfly powerbombing him. then turning his attentions toward manager DiBiase, who was on the end of a Scott Steiner punch. It was then that we witnessed Scott Steiner join the nWo and turn his back on his brother, his manager, and his fans. Meanwhile, Hall was taking Rick Steiner apart, with plenty of help from Kevin Nash. Despite his valiant efforts, Rick Steiner was caught up in the outsider's edge and thrown to the mat by Hall, who covered him for the 1, 2, and 3. Scott Steiner then picked up the Steiner brothers' tag team belts and handed them over to Hall and Nash. And then he took a swing at the ref. While the crowd was jeering the sickening turn of events, Hall, Nash, Rhodes, and Scott Steiner stood in the ring embracing. Hall, looking right at the camera to the millions at home, remarked, "One more for the good guys," and raised the traitor Steiner's hand in victory. So the winner here, guys, well, Rick Steiner really had no chance. It was 3-4 on one, you might say. The Steiner brothers torn apart by Scott Steiner's treachery. And we had new tag champs, of course, the Outsiders, but more importantly, the Steiner brother tag team. Long time family tag team, two brothers, ripped apart at the seams. A very shocking moment here at Superbrawl VIII. Okay, now we head to the main event of Superbrawl VIII. It was Hollywood Hulk Hogan taking on Sting for the vacated WCW World Heavyweight Title. The two men stepped into the ring, prepared to do whatever it took to win that belt and show everyone who the real WCW champion of the world was. Sting wasted no time running to the ring, but was quickly whipped with Hogan's weightlifting belt as Hogan yelled, "You ain't nothing." Outside, Hogan punched and choked Sting, then threw the man from the rafters into the safety rail. Just as it seemed that Hollywood would get the better of his opponent, Sting rallied, unleashing a ton of punches, chops and kicks to Hogan, and after atomic dropping the nWo leader, Sting took the same belt that he was whipped with and gave back a healthy dose of punishment to Hogan, who ran out of the ring. Sting caught the nWo Godfather and pulled him towards the ring, then up and over the safety rail and into the screaming crowd. After a missed Stinger splash, Hogan managed a stiff chair shot to Sting. A desperate Hogan even went so far as to bite Sting, but WCW's hero remained undaunted and slapped on the Scorpion Deathlock. Somehow managing to get to the ropes, Hogan was able to get the hold broken and was handily splashed by Sting. The unlucky referee for the match was accidentally sandwiched between the two men and went out like a light when the two collided. Enter referee Nick Patrick. Hogan, smelling victory now and seeing what he believed to be an ally in Patrick, went after Sting but was pulled off. Staring at Patrick in disbelief, Hogan screamed, "Hey, it's me," to Patrick, who steadfastly stayed on the right side of the rulebook this time around. Of course, after the Starrcade debacle. After more intense in and out of the ring brawling, Sting splashed Hogan twice and went for the death drop. But referee Nick Patrick was injured and unable to count the cover or see the onslaught of the nWo as they made their way to the ring. As the nWo climbed into the ring, Sting took each one out, throwing them over the top. As Hogan was rousing from his Sting-induced sleep, Randy Savage, quick as a cat, slid into the ring, hit him with a spray paint can, left it lying in the ring, then dashed out. Sting, seeing Hogan still down, went for the count. Patrick, who had finally revived, made the count, and the rest is history. Sting was the official World Heavyweight Champion. Seeing the spray can that Savage had left lying next to Hogan, Sting, a sly smile crossing his face, picked it up and painted the famous letters WCW on the helpless Hogan's chest as the crowd cheered. WCW had won again, and a dejected and disoriented Hogan was left lying in the ring as the new champ proudly walked off with his belt. The winner here, a new WCW, officially this time, World Heavyweight Champion, Sting. Righty guys, that was Superbrawl VIII, all the way back from 1998. A pretty good show, definitely worth going back to have a look at if you've got the WWE Network. It's pretty good WCW pay-per-view. I think just the fact that it was Superbrawl, it was probably missing, like there was no Bret Hart, there was no Ric Flair. Like they had their match back at Sold Out the month before. As I mentioned in my looking back at Sold Out video from 1998, I probably would have preferred them to have the Bret Hart Ric Flair match at Superbrawl. Just would have probably been more fitting, I think. So maybe it was missing a match like that. But you know, aside from that, it was definitely a pretty cool pay-per-view. Some of the standout matches of the night, definitely DDP versus Chris Benoit. That would have had to have been the match of the night. Really good match for the US title there. Chris Jericho and Hogan, pretty good match. Those cruiserweight matches are always good. Also with Booker T, he had a couple of matches to start off the pay-per-view, and you know, they were really pushing him at that stage, and he was winning everything, and he had an hellacious couple of matches to start off the pay-per-view, so that's pretty cool. Good effort there by the book, man. And of course we had the big shocking moment with the Steiner brothers breaking up. I mean, at the time when Scott hit his brother Rick and broke up the Steiner brothers, that was huge. So that was a real big moment from Superbrawl VIII, that's for sure. Just a quick note on the main event. I think I actually preferred the Starrcade match between Sting and Hogan to this one. This one was longer, which was good. Starrcade match was a bit short, I thought. So this match was nice and long, but it was far too one-sided. Like probably Hogan politicking and stuff. Like the match was like 90% all Hogan. You know. Then of course Sting gets the win at the end, but it wasn't a very good back and forth match like the match was at Starrcade. The match was far too one-sided. From the moment Sting ran in, slid under the bottom ropes from the start of the match, it was all Hogan. So yeah, just too one-sided there for that match. But you know, it was okay for what it was, but I think I did prefer the Starrcade match. But anyway, all in all, a pretty good pay-per-view all in all. Pretty good Superbrawl, not too bad at all. So cheers heaps for checking it out, and we'll catch you next time.